Welcome back to The Big Question. Tonight we're talking about the state of our roads, and we're asking, are you satisfied with the state of our roads? Send us your comments on 22422 on Twitter using the hashtag The Big Question. A lot of comments already coming in, some with specific references to highways or roads which they use normally. Our guest tonight is Engineer Meshach Kidenda, Director General, Kenya National Highways Authority of Kenya. Thank you so much for making time for us tonight, Engineer. Praise and criticism in equal measure. Somebody here says, yes, I'm interested with the progress and continual improvement of our roads. I'm happy with the work progress. That is Muridhi Njeru from Meru South. And I'll just ask you as I begin, what is your general assessment of our roads?
Well, thank you very much. I think we need to know that in Kenya we have 160,000 kilometers of roads. And that's a large number of kilometers. Out of that, currently we have just about 14,000 kilometers which are paved.
Paved, you mean tarmacked? Is it?
Tarmacked.
Okay.
Yes. And our estimation as a government is that close to 50% is in good and fair condition. So indeed, there is a large number of those kilometers which would be better.
14,000 out of 160,000?
Yes.
And that is, according to you, a good...
No, I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that's where we've reached. And that's why there's effort now to rev it up. Maybe the way we've been doing it over the last 50 years has not worked. Because at that rate, how long will it take to pave the 160,000?
So what is it that you think should be done differently? Or what are you planning to do differently?
Well, the Jubilee government has indicated that 10,000 kilometers is going to be done in the next 5 years. And we as implementing agencies in the ministry, we are moving to start implementing that.
This is one thing that has been talked about over the last week or so, and I believe there's a conference to that effect tomorrow. How possible is this?
It is possible because what we are looking at is what is it that we've been doing and how can we do it differently so that we achieve this. Over the last 50 years, the average number of kilometers per year has been about 240. Now we're talking of 2,000 in a year. So we are actually having a total shift in the way we do things. Now, we've looked at our operations. What is it that we've been doing? How have we been doing it? We've been getting the roads to be designed. After design, you look for money. After that, you look for a contractor, and then you implement. All
this done by different people?
Yes, and in different time scales.
Yes.
So you finish one, then you go to the next. Then we are now saying, why not get a consortium, get contractors together, get the banks together, get the consultants, the engineers. Why don't they form a team? They get a road, they design, they finance simultaneously. So we talk of finance, design, build, and maintain. That's where we want to go.
Right.
In that way, we cut on the time, the lead time, from the time you decide you're going to do a project to the time you start the construction and the completion of the project. I think that is key in this, because the lead time can be up to 2 years when you're just doing the design. Then after 2 years, we start looking for financing and then eventually bring in a contractor. So if this can be collapsed into one, then we can say, okay, we are going to do road from A to B and get this team on board. Immediately they can start designing it and constructing, and we will have a much shorter time period.
Yes. But is it possible to bring all these people together?
Well, it has worked in other countries, and there's no reason why they can't work together, because basically...
I'm looking at people who have different interests, and you want to bring them together to do one thing together. Is that really workable?
They have different interests, but currently they're all working together, only that their paymasters are different. The contractor will be paid by the ministry or by the Kenya. The consultant will be paid by Kenya. So while we're saying, why don't you work together? Then we pay both of you together so that you are all accountable. One is working for Kenya as a supervisor, one is working for Kenya as a constructor. We are saying, work together, deliver this, not only deliver it, but also maintain it after you've constructed it.
And how are you looking to the private sector to finance this?
We have talked to the contractors.
This is also something you want to introduce tomorrow.
We want to encourage, because we are saying that even now, the contractors actually go to the banks, borrow money, they do the work, and then the government pays. Now what we are saying is, can the government have an arrangement, a tripartite kind of arrangement, where the contractor, the bank have this arrangement, but the government says, yes, when this contractor has received money from you and has built a road, we shall pay you.
The bank.
Yes. So we are trying to have a system, what we call annuity payments. The contractor takes money, builds the road, and then the government pays the bank. That is the annuity program we are talking about. We are saying, can we have an agreement that the bank will give the contractor money, the government will give the contractor work, and between the three, there will be an agreement that when it comes to time for paying, the government will pay the bank.
Right. And what amount are you looking at? I mean, the whole amount, if you're given, you have a contract and you want to build a certain road, you go to the bank and get the whole amount so that the government goes back and pays the whole amount, or what happens?
Payment modalities are being worked out. Basically what we're saying is that we would want, a typical example, we want a road to be built over 3 years and maintained for 5. So that's a total of 8 years. We are saying if this road is 8 billion, we'd like the government to pay 8 billion over the 8 years.
Okay.
So the agreement will be that in every year, a certain amount of money will be paid.
To the bank.
To the bank, or even if the contractor has the money, to the contractor.
Right.
So that we know that every 3 months or every 6 months, a certain amount of money is going to be paid to this contractor or to the bank.
Finally, before we go to the specifics, this has already been cast in stone, or what will happen in the conference tomorrow? Is it a proposal?
It's been discussed at length. We've talked to the banks, we've talked to the engineers, we've talked to the contractors, but we want to talk to the larger stakeholders, because for this to succeed, it's not just the contractor and the banks. We need people to provide the right materials, we need equipment. It's something big. I've said we've been doing 200 kilometers, yes. We are now talking 2,000. And therefore the scale of doing things is a lot bigger than we've been doing. And therefore there's need to bring everybody on board. We want to share it out with the equipment suppliers, with the manufacturers, so that we can say, yes, this is the way we want to go, and what business opportunities, for example, do we have for all these stakeholders.
Okay. Back to our question, are you satisfied with the state of our roads? Somebody here says, certainly not. Who is responsible to construct and repair roads in Mombasa City? I feel sidelined as a Kenyan, more so because I see relatively good roads in Nairobi, and that brings me to a question I was supposed to ask. Why is it that over the years and up to now, and it's still consistent, it happens, we see some regions having better roads or better road networks than others? What happens?
Well, I could say there's a historical background to this, for example. The development of Kenya, if you look at it, is concentrated along the railway. Mombasa, into Nairobi, all the way to Malaba. Most of the development has taken off from that railway.
Yeah.
And what was called the White Highlands, where the farms were, and so a lot of infrastructure was built in that area, basically to bring the produce from the farms, bring them to the towns to process them and to export them either towards Uganda.
Yeah.
So that has been there. A lot of the areas with more roads also have more population, because this demand, bring to this village, bring to that village. But that distribution is being addressed. Because I think if we look at our new constitution, basically we are talking about equity in development.
And the reason why I asked that is that even from the SMSs and what people have been talking about, US is not politics, of course, but people talk about politics, and this has been said before, Siasa mbaya, maisha mbaya, and everything. And talk about politicians influencing the development of certain areas, and especially with roads. That is politically, they call them politically correct areas. Does that happen?
Well,
or how do you guard against this?
That can be said, but if that was the case, then you could pinpoint people who have been in top positions, and then you'd expect that all of them have good roads. But if we started with you, you'll find that some people have been in very high positions, but in their areas they don't have roads. So it's not exactly true. They could influence, because it's a system. Maybe you say a word when people are planning, you are there, you can say, how about that road? But it's not something you can say that if you follow it, you'll find. Let me just say that the criteria for building the roads, if you come to the highways, what is it that we are trying to achieve as a country? One is for the trade facilitation. We want that the produce of Kenya can be exported to Mombasa and to the region. So you'll find that the national highways will be concentrating on the regional connectivity. Now, it doesn't matter whether there's a tough politician along that route. If we need to get to Malaba, we'll do the road. If we need to get to Loitoktok, we do that. We are now working towards Ethiopia because there's need for Kenyan goods to go to Ethiopia. There's need for Ethiopians to use our port. So that is how we do it. When it comes to maintenance, the parliament, in its wisdom, has a certain the law on road maintenance was done in such a way that there's money which is equally shared. And it goes down to the constituency road committees.
Right.
And therefore the leaders all over the country, all of them, have this equal share of money which they need to use for maintaining their roads. Yes.
Okay, back to that, and Rotich from Kericho specifically talks about some areas like the central region of this country. He talks about a few roads here. For instance, talk about Tambach to Aror, to Tot, to Sigor Road, and why it has never been tarmacked. Somebody else here talks about the road or why there's never been a highway to Mandera. Yet you're saying it doesn't necessarily mean that some regions in this country are better endowed.
Yeah. In fact, that supports what I was saying. I'm sure we know that some very tough politicians have come from Mandera, and we are saying they don't have tarmac. So it's not necessarily political. But if you look at the development now, what we're doing, you'll find that between Garissa, we've worked to Modica to Nuno, and soon Nuno to Modagashe will be done. Those are projects which are already, we have a contractor on site. Eventually it gets to Mandera.
Okay.
Maybe it's going to get there 20 years later because of the rate at which we've been working. But at least there's an effort to address that. Okay.
We're going to look at a few tweets now as you feedback here. We have at Ndegwas, the big question says there are fewer bad roads in the country at the moment, but a lot to be done. Good roads will reduce accidents. At K Kitsao, my constituency Ganze doesn't have even a single inch of tarmac road. We have structures in place. And at DN Karaoke, most roads have no provision for cyclists and pedestrians. These two plus motorists fight for the same lanes. And at Tabaru 2003, what is the government doing to ensure strict timelines are adhered to during road construction and repairs? And at B Jarongo, the only difference between a road and a shamba in some parts of Rongo during rainy periods is just lack of plants. Now, specific questions there. Somebody talking about Rongo and Ganze, never seen tarmac.
Yes, that is true. We have done an analysis of the distribution of roads in this country. And indeed, there are some constituencies which do not have tarmac roads. So when the government is now talking of 10,000 kilometers over the next 4 years, in drawing up that program, these constituencies will be considered. From the theoretical point of view of us as engineers, we are saying that the best way to start would be if we have 10 constituencies or counties which don't have tarmac roads, they should be very highly ranked in terms of priorities when it comes to starting this project we are going into. Because we need to start from somewhere. If you have 0, maybe you'll get 200. If you have 100, maybe you should be considered for 15. But these are modalities which are being worked. It's being worked and it is being finalized so that we have a criteria which we can come here, go to the public and say, this is the criteria which we are using in order to address the inequalities which have existed and also to address the economic needs of this country.
So such a criteria doesn't exist as it is, as you speak?
No, I'm saying this 10,000 kilometers.
Right. Okay. What I would want to know then is there any national road plan in Kenya? And do Kenyans know about this? Like, you can hear people talking, and from the feedback we're getting,
Yes.
nobody really knows what the plan is and how are Kenyans involved. Is there anything like public participation in where is to be developed or which road is to be developed?
Yes, we have a document called Road Sector Investment Plan, which has been developed and is in place. Then the development of this country's Vision 2030, it comes down to the MTP, the Medium Term Plan. If you go into that plan, you'll find that we have listed what we want to do in the next 5 years. It is out of that Medium Term Plan that we as an authority, for example, we draw our strategic planning and we say, in order to address the Vision 2030 through the Medium Term Plan, we are going to do these roads.
Right. But does it have input, Mwananchi's input?
Yes, it does.
At what stage? People have talked about when we see people building houses,
Yes.
10 years later they're told this is on a road reserve,
Yes.
simply because the institutions that are supposed to share with them such information do not know, or they do not know that this was supposed to be a road reserve. And that is why I'm asking, where is the Mwananchi's input in this?
Yeah, that is partially true. A lot of the people whose properties are being knocked down were made aware that they're building on the road reserves. But they thought at the moment, because of where they were, they could get away with it. But there is sharing. Like, if you are doing a new road, we do have public hearings where we go down to the ground. We have to say, we want the road to pass through here. We have to tell the people, in order for the road to pass, we are going to affect so many people. So we have to do what we call resettlement action plans. We have to list the project affected people. So all this is listed down.
Right.
And there's public hearing where you involve the people, the administration, so that people participate in that project.
It was very ambitious for us to try and talk about roads in the few minutes we have. Is too wide, but finally let me just ask what has been asked in terms of sidewalks for cyclists. And somebody here also says, why don't you leave sidewalks for persons with disability as roads are built? And again, somebody also talks about lighting and an example of thicker superhighway, why they are not seeing lights on the roads.
Okay, thank you. I think as engineers in the past, we have not given adequate attention to what we call non-motorized traffic, the pedestrians, the cyclists. We've concentrated on the road for the motorized traffic. But this is a mistake which we have realized and we are correcting. If you've seen the roads we've done, like around Kileleshwa, if you look at Thika Road, we've gone out of our way to provide cycle paths, we've gone out of our way to provide pedestrian walkways. So this is something you'll see more and more as we upgrade our roads, because it's best done when we are overhauling an old road and building it anew. So as we do that, you'll see more and more of this being provided. You've seen in Mombasa Road, Kenya is putting up 2 footbridges, one at General Motors and at Bellevue. We are addressing this problem because trying to cross that highway is a problem.
Okay.
Thika Road is a special problem in that the lights were put in, but Kenyans vandalized a lot of our property.
Okay.
In fact, we have had to put in a new contract for maintenance, and you commented that it's expensive. It's expensive because the first thing this new contractor is doing is to reinstate what has been vandalized. And it's running into millions, several hundred millions of shillings.
Okay.
Yes.
Engineer Meshack Idenda, Director General, Kenya National Highways Authority. Like we said, it's a very wide subject. We couldn't, of course, cover anything, but keep sending us your comments. We'll make sure they are channeled to Kenha and to Engineer. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you.
On The Big Question, we take a short break. We'll be back after this.